Are you tired of a cluttered, disorganized shop? Not only is this really frustrating, but it actually kills your productivity and makes every project take even longer than it should. And with so little free time available, you don't want to spend any more time looking for that buried tool that's in the bottom of some overstuffed drawer. So today I'm going to show you how to build custom storage cabinets for your shop that's going to reclaim the wasted space. Plus, I'll show you how to avoid some of the biggest mistakes people make when building custom shop cabinets and how you can do it and save hundreds of dollars on materials. So to start, let me show you how to cut your plywood costs by over 60%.
Now, everyone knows that plywood is an obvious choice when it comes to building cabinets. The large, flat panels are just much easier to cut down into cabinet parts than working with solid wood. But many people don't realize just how many options you have when it comes to choosing what plywood to use for your project, and how much this can affect not just the quality of the build, but also have a significant effect on your budget as well. Choosing the right plywood for your project is a lot like choosing what kind of car to buy. Now, domestic plywood is like an American-made truck, like a Ford or Chevy. It's widely available, costs a little more than you think it should, and the quality can be a bit hit or miss. Some sheets of plywood are rock solid, while others feel like they were just slapped together on a Friday afternoon right before a long 3-day weekend. And just like that Dodge truck, the domestic plywood gets the job done, but you might have to deal with a few issues here and there. For instance, they tend to have voids. You may experience some delamination, and more than likely, you're going to have a few warped sheets. And at almost $90 a sheet, you're paying for the availability and that Made in America sticker, but the quality just isn't what it used to be. Now, if you want to really step up your game and go all out, Baltic Birch is like getting an imported luxury car. Made with high-end materials and tight tolerances, you get a premium product, but you're also going to have to pay a premium price. And if you've ever had the opportunity to use Baltic Birch, you know what an awesome product it is to work with. It stays dead flat, and I've never encountered a void in the lamination. If you want the best material available, Baltic Birch is the clear choice. But at $150 to $200 a sheet, you're paying top dollar for the luxury. But there is a third option, and that's actually what I'm using for today's build. Imported plywood is like the Toyotas and the Hondas of the plywood world. It is surprisingly decent quality at a very reasonable price. And while it lacks that prestige of Baltic Birch, it is reliable, consistent, and can be of better value than domestic plywood, just like that Toyota Corolla you've been driving around for the past 20 years. A 4x8 sheet of this imported plywood only cost me $35. So I'm sure you're asking yourself, John, where do I find this amazing plywood? It's actually quite simple, and it's so obvious I'm kicking myself for not doing this like years sooner. Just go over to Google and type in plywood supplier near me. Scroll past the home centers and look for places that cater to furniture builders and cabinet shops. Now, don't be intimidated to check these places out. The people working there are very friendly and willing to help. After answering a few questions about my project, they were able to recommend a product that fit my needs while saving me a ton of money. When it comes to building the cabinets, there's no reason to spend a lot of time with complicated joinery. We're not building an heirloom piece of furniture here with dovetails and castle joints. It's just a cabinet to hold our tools. So a little glue and a few screws are all you really need, and pocket holes make assembling cabinets a snap. I mean, at this point, it's almost like assembling Legos, and seriously, who doesn't enjoy putting together Lego sets? Just make sure that the pockets are on the inside of the cabinet so everyone doesn't see them. They can be a bit of an eyesore. I know it's just shop cabinets, but come on, we aren't complete barbarians here. Now right here you see me installing a set of drawer slides on one side of the cabinet. Well, I have to install these drawer slides now because in a minute I won't be able to fit my drill inside of here to drive in the screws. That's because I'm adding this divider just a few inches away from the side of the cabinet. You see that narrow gap? Yeah, there's no way I'm fitting a drill in there. So why did I make such a narrow space? Well, we'll come back to that in a bit. First, I need to show you the next big mistake that is literally stealing your shop time from you. And to prove this point, let me show you a cabinet that I built a couple of years ago. Do you see the problem? What about now? Now I bet you see it, right? When I built this cabinet, I thought big drawers are going to be awesome. I'll have so much space to have lots of tools and supplies. But here's the reality. Let's say I need to find my setup gauges to set my table saw blade height, and suddenly I'm on a scavenger hunt. 10 minutes later, I've found 3 lost tape measures, a bunch of random drill bits, and a Craig jig I don't even remember owning. But I still haven't found my set of setup blocks. The big, deep drawers really seem like a great idea, but in reality, they're just a big black hole for tools to disappear into, never to be seen again. But the good news is, the solution is really simple. Just make the drawers smaller. That's it. The smaller drawers are so much easier to organize, and they aren't too deep, so you can quickly find what's inside, find what you need, and get back to building your project instead of wasting all of your time exploring the void. Now, while we're on the subject of drawers, if you've been paying attention, you may have noticed that I'm using 1/2-inch plywood for the drawers instead of 3/4. And there's some very good reasons for this. First, 1/2-inch plywood is significantly lighter than 3/4 inch. The drawers aren't going to be seeing a lot of stress on this project, so you don't really need to support a heavy load, so 3/4 just isn't necessary. Couple that with the solid drawer building technique that I'm using, and the 1/2-inch material is more than strong enough. The second reason for using thinner material is to reduce cost. 1/2-inch plywood is like 20% cheaper than 3/4 inch plywood. So you can save a significant amount of money by using 1/2-inch plywood for your drawer components. Now, this same idea also applies to the drawer bottoms. There's just no reason to use thick material here, especially since we're not building huge, deep drawers and overloading them with tons of tools. So I'm just using 1/4-inch plywood, which has plenty of strength for a drawer bottom. Especially with the drawer construction method I'm using, anything thicker is just throwing money away. Now, about this drawer construction method you see me using here. For this method, you cut a rabbet on the side pieces and leave the front and back pieces as they are. Then, with a groove cut in all 4 parts for the bottom panel, the drawers go together just like everyone's favorite plastic building blocks. Now, a great thing about this method is the large glue reference surface that the rabbets provide almost guarantees the drawer boxes are square without any fiddling. Now, I'm sure you know just as well as me, there are probably more ways you can build a drawer than there are woodworkers on YouTube telling you that their way is the best and you should only build them the way they do. Now, I'm not saying this is the best or only way to build drawers, it's just a great option to keep in your arsenal. My recommendation is to try out several methods and find out one that works well for you in your shop. Now, with all our drawers done and ready for install, it's time to get over to our next big problem, expensive drawer slides. Now, I like to use undermount slides for custom furniture. They work really smooth and are completely hidden so you only see the beautiful wood.
That's what she said.
But for shop cabinets, there's no need to be that fancy. Simple side-mounted drawer slides are more than adequate and much more budget-friendly. But even these can cost more than the plywood used to build the entire cabinet. Let me show you. I'm using full extension drawer slides, which give me full access to the entire drawer. Highly recommended, by the way. I wouldn't do it any other way. But at my local home center, these drawer slides cost about $25 a pair. And for this one small cabinet, that's over $150 just in drawer slides. Now, I just knew there had to be a better way, so I did what any budget-minded woodworker/engineer would do. I went on a deep dive. I spent days searching, scrolling, price checking, and reading reviews. And finally, I found an answer. At cabinetparts.com, I can get 20-inch full extension drawer slides for about $10 a pair. I only paid $60 for the drawer slides for this entire cabinet. That is a massive savings. Now, I've been purchasing from them for the last several projects, trying out their drawer slides, and I can confirm they work great. I'll leave a link in the video description so you can go check them out yourself. The next big mistake people make when building cabinets is not taking the time to think through exactly how the cabinet's going to be used. They'll just jump in and start building a basic cabinet that really isn't any different from just the standard contractor grade cabinet that you could pick up for a really cheap price at a home center. After all, what's the point in building custom cabinets? It's so that you can build a custom solution to meet a specific need. You should also consider how you'll be using the cabinet, what will be stored in it. If you think these things through before you start the construction, you can design the cabinet to meet those specific needs. Now for this cabinet, I have to work around space limitations, so I'm building it to a very specific size. I also want to include some unique storage options like these pegs for hanging saw blades and dado stacks. Speaking of which, what do you call this side cabinet thing? Slide out, roll out, pull out? Just please, for the love of all things holy, baseball, and mom's homemade apple pie, don't call them drawerbinets. Let's try to have some semblance of class around here. With the drawer fronts and our definitely not a drawerbinet installed, it's time to make the false drawer fronts for the front of our cabinet. And even though this is a shop cabinet, there's nothing wrong with trying to make it look nice. So I decided it would be nice to add some edge banding to the drawer fronts and make them look like solid wood instead of just cheap imported plywood. But unfortunately, this is where things started to go wrong. Come on. All right, so we've got a bit of a problem. So this little cheap trimmer that I picked up for the edge banding is absolute garbage. Not only is it not cutting very well, but it's actually digging into and removing some of the veneer off of my drawer fronts, which let's just say is not ideal. So I'm going to walk away from this and find another solution later. That'll be a problem for future me to work out, because I just need to step away from this and go work on something else, and I'll solve this problem a little bit later. Now, while this is definitely not an ideal situation, this is a great lesson for dealing with problems that come up in the shop. And believe me, problems will come up. But when they do, don't dwell on them. Walk away, focus on something else for a bit, and then come back to it later once you have a fresh mind and a new attitude. Since I built the cabinet case using glue and pocket screws, I really don't need a lot of strength from the back panel. So a 1/4-inch plywood panel glued to the back is really all we need here. Then a chamfer bit in my palm router does an excellent job at cleaning up the edge. Now, one of the biggest problems with working in a small garage shop is making good use of the very limited space that you have. And the best way of dealing with this issue is to ensure that all of your tools and equipment are easy to move around in case you need to park a car or you want to try a new shop layout to see if that works better for your flow. And for this reason, every major tool, bench, and cabinet I have is on wheels. That way I can easily move things around or out of the way whenever I want. And once you've got those wheels installed, make sure to give them a test run. All right, so I got a new edge banding trimmer in, and let's see how this works. Both sides at the same time. Very nice. You get what you pay for, once again. And now that I have my edge banding trimmer issues resolved, I can get back to finishing these drawer fronts. And wow, what a difference this trimmer made. I have to reiterate how much more enjoyable it is working with good quality tools. I'll leave a link in the description so you can grab one of these for yourself. And be sure to sign up for my emails to make sure that you stay up to date on woodworking tips and tricks, as well as some great discounts. Now this is my foolproof method for attaching drawer fronts. I use a small stack of playing cards to keep the spacing between the drawers the same on all sides. Then I can drive a screw through the front where the drawer pull will attach. A couple of screws in the back side, and then I can move on to the next drawer. I get a lot of questions asking what type of finish I use on a workbench or a shop cabinet. Now, this is one thing I really don't put much thought into. I'll just use whatever I happen to have, just a little bit left of. In this case, it's a can of Osmo that's almost empty. Sometimes it's General Finishes Armor Seal or even a spray can of shellac. But the main body of my cabinet is going to get painted black. Now you could treat this the same as the drawer fronts if you want, with whatever finish you happen to have lying around. But I'm going with black so the cabinet better fits in with my table saw and my router. It's just nice to have that little bit of cohesiveness to the shop. Drawer pulls, on the other hand, I do put a lot of thought into, and I think you should as well. Because the last thing I want to happen at the table saw or the router is for my clothes to get snagged on a drawer pull and distract me long enough to put my hand into a blade. Now because of that, I like these low profile drawer pulls. There's almost no chance of getting snagged on them, and they actually look pretty good as well. Now, if you haven't realized yet, this cabinet is made to go beneath the wing of a table saw, but it could be easily used elsewhere as well. It's going to save me so many trips going across the shop having my table saw accessories right here next to the saw. Now we can start filling all these drawers with the tools and supplies. But with all this improved organization, we easily fall into another trap. And this is where everyone, and even me, makes the biggest mistake of them all, which is buying tools that you later regret spending your money on. Now, to avoid falling into this trap and spending your hard-earned money on a bunch of wasted tools, make sure to watch this next video where I show you my biggest tool buying regrets and the tools that you should be buying instead.